All right, so we're on the topic number 4. It's the summer of George, and a friend of mine from the bookstore I work at, Scott's joining us, and he picked what I think is an absolute killer episode, maybe an underrated episode after rewatching it, because holy cow, did this episode go off the rails. It's the Jimmy. It's the 105th episode of the NBC sitcom Seinfeld, of course. This was the 19th episode for the 6th season. It originally aired on March 16th, 1995. The episode's title refers to guest character Jimmy, played by Anthony Stark, who transmitted his habit of referring to himself in the third person to regular characters George and Elaine. In other plot points of this show, Jerry becomes suspicious of the going on at Tim Watley's dental office. It just gets so gnarly, and Kramer is mistaken for a mentally challenged person, leading him to be a guest of honor with Mel Torme, the Velvet Fog, who appears in the episode as himself. So Scott, I just want to go right with this.
Yeah.
You did terrific pick, and I think he says, what led you to this pick? Because it's a great episode, but what led you to the Jimmy?
Well, I've done some deep soul searching in the rewatch and just trying to figure out like why I did pick this, because it's like when I started the rewatch, it's like, okay, it's not a classic, like just hilarious start to finish episode. But I think for me, what I love about Seinfeld is like specific scenes that I just can't forget that I'm on the floor with. And I mean, it makes it so that it's hard to pick an episode, but usually when I try to like think of my favorite scenes, I go to Kramer on the Novocaine, where it's like, if they pull the needle out, I let the expletives fly,
It's so good.
I mean, it almost doesn't get better than that for me. So it's a great Kramer episode. Love having a recurring character appear. So classic Tim Watley, or is it Caligula? We're not sure, but pretty sure after the very end. Kind of sounds like it's there in print in the latest Penthouse. But you got that, and you got the Velvet Fog. I mean, come on now. You've got Mr. Mel Torme himself, nailing a classic song, and it's like, and he even doesn't feel like some guy on a sitcom who's like uncomfortable to be there. He is totally with it.
Yes.
And with the gag and just nailing it. So yeah, it's just all those things I keep going back to.
And I think I literally just watched this because this is what I do whenever our guest picks the episodes. I have to watch it like immediately. And I've said that Janie and I are rewatching this, so it wasn't that long ago we rewatched it, but now like really scrutinize these episodes. And the one thing that I noticed with this episode is so many like people that were guests, like just side actors, whatever, are losing it. When Jimmy slips and falls, the medic has to turn his head because Jimmy's screaming. He's screaming about like, Jimmy's gonna get you, Kramer, and the medic can't even look up because he's
got a compound fracture.
Jimmy's got a compound. It's so funny to me that like so many people break in this episode because it is insane. Like, and you and I have talked about this, Scott, and Brenton. Is 7, 8, and 9 of the seasons were just completely off the wall. But if you just drop me into this episode in like, if you told me this was a season 7 episode, I believe you 100% because it's so different than the rest of them. It's absolutely insane when Kramer is doing when he gets punched by Jimmy and he's at the Mel Torme event. The woman who may not even know she's on camera is gone. She's losing her mind. And like they keep showing her and she like keeps looking away because I think she doesn't know, but she kind of knows she might be on camera. And it's so funny to me because I mean, Seinfeld, there's a reason why we're doing a summer of George, but it's so funny. But to see people that are like, for them to break after how many takes do you think it is? It's just you have to eventually go with it. And I think this is what made it so good. And when Kramer is doing the scene with the guy in the car, like he got nominated for an Emmy that year. It has to be because of that scene, because that is, he does. And Michael Richards, for whatever happened to him after Seinfeld and things like that, he got nominated, I think 4 times. He won twice and got nominated 4 times. Or 5 times. So he won twice, got nominated. So he's like, Hall of Famer, batting average. this is the episode. He didn't win for this season, which is insane because of that episode alone. But man, what chops does he show? It's a Kramer episode. And there's not to me a lot of Kramer episodes. There's a lot of like Kramer's a really good second part of the episode, but Kramer episode through and through. Everybody else is really good, but man, it's just, it's one of the, it might be one of the most ridiculous episodes, top 10 ridiculous episode, but it still works. There's still a plot the entire time.
Yeah, and when you talk about people just breaking up and losing it, I mean, one of the things too, in the final song, I don't always like in sitcoms where when you have like the crowds just going off, like during Friends, you know, if like a couple finally gets together and the crowd's reacting, I just often just roll my eyes. It's like, you know, I don't need to hear that. But in that final scene with the song, because it's so long, and
it's
the
so long.
It's probably builds, you know, it's like it's amazing.
I looked up some production notes on this episode specifically, and I learned in that two things about that final scene. Number one, it was filmed in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
So that's all. There's no laugh track there. It's just legitimate. And the other thing was it was one take.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Mel Torme did that in one take, to the point that when Jason Alexander watched the episode back, he didn't think that Mel Torme had read the script, and he actually thought Kramer was a mentally challenged person. Like that's how well he sold it. Well, I mean,
that whole thing too with Elaine and Jerry, like doing the whole thing about him being mentally challenged.
Exactly.
And they're like, well,
of course they'll find out. Well,
The other thing that I really like about this episode, and we kind of talked about it in the chicken roaster episode with Janie, was oftentimes there are things in Seinfeld episodes that come out that are remembered, but they're not necessarily remembered for the episode that they're in. And for me, I think that that's George and the Kung Pao Chicken, with him just sweating bullets. And this was that character's first episode. That was another thing that I learned. Mr. Was it Wilhelm, I think?
Yeah.
The boss. Yeah. This was his first episode. So that's another fun piece of trivia for this particular episode. But you remember George likes his chicken spicy, obviously, and that kind of fits with the whole Jimmy thing. But for me, just thinking about like him just sweating bullets after eating the Kung Pao, and then the whole thing, because Greg and I actually watched this just coincidentally at the same time, and I texted him, but you got a shower. That didn't take.
You gotta take a cold shower. That's for psychopaths.
And then I would also say just the Tim Whatley thing is with the, like, I know that aspect of the show of like the penthouses and them doing shady stuff with patients that are under in a seizure or whatever, but I didn't necessarily connect it with being in this episode. So that's another one of those funny things. I will say too that this episode is very special to me because it was one of my dad's favorite episodes because of the Kramer, with the shoes and the Novocaine and all that.
And that's like one of those things where like it's the Jimmy episode, and maybe like the first time you see it, and like I did this, like I remember after watching the Jimmy, is I went into school and was like, Greg doesn't like this. I was doing all this, but like after a rewatch, it does, like I said, it becomes actually a Kramer episode. The Jimmy thing's funny, and wearing the basketball shoes, and the fact that he can dunk, and George jumping in front of the Foot Locker employees is so funny. Like it gets 2 inches off the ground. I think that is just such a key moment for me. It is one of those, I almost feel like it's underrated at this point because it fell in those seasons where like everything was so technically perfect, and this show's not a technically perfect show.
No,
it is basically like
crazy.
It's completely insane. And I think that's what makes it so good to me is like, oh, okay, we're getting ready for seasons, because it's the latter part of season 6. And Larry David might not have had to do as much with this. He still wrote the episode, but it was one of those things where like, let's just have Kramer shine, and everybody, like Jerry is the last character in this episode. There's not a lot of, it's him in Whatley's room, and I love that Whatley's wearing like the velvet shirt, and he has the earring.
Shirt is nuts.
The shirt's nuts. He's got the earring, and like it's an adult only dentist now. That's so weird.
when he gives himself the hit of nitrous.
Yes.
Oh my
like
God,
Bryan
it's so
Cranston
good.
says, he just like came up with that,
Yep.
which is like brilliant. You know, it's like, remember that. It's just genius.
It's a great episode. Scott, you did a great job. Because honestly,
Yeah,
when you said that, I was like,
absolutely.
I remember loving this episode as a kid. And,
Yeah.
and, you know, rewatching it. I mean, like all these episodes, I always joke that I've seen these episodes probably more than anyone. And I still
Yeah.
truly believe that. But man, this episode hits different later in life because it is a Kramer episode. And yeah, so it really, really good job.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you.
excellent pull. Excellent pull.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's one of those. I watched it, you know, last night, watched it just an hour ago and laughed just as much an hour
Oh,
ago
yeah.
as I did. You know, it just doesn't lose it.
I thought I was gonna make. I thought I was gonna wake my kids up because I was laughing.
Yeah.
I was audibly laughing so hard while I was watching this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's well, Scott, thank you for coming on.
Sure.
We can't appreciate enough because it's just to have someone to talk about Seinfeld with, you know, at the store with you is like such a relief for me because it is my favorite thing. It's Michael Jordan and it's Seinfeld. And that's really where I'm at with life. That's all I have.
And when you
like
can
pop
just,
culture.
when you can just throw out a quote in the middle of the day during trying
And-
times, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's
And you'll
excellent.
get it. You'll laugh. You'll be 30 feet away from me. So I really appreciate it. Just for that and for coming on the show and to pick a great episode.
If we have is there a minute for me to tell a Seinfeld related story?
Oh, yes,
Sure,
there is.
absolutely.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I love a Seinfeld story.
Yeah. Okay. So, just so happens my mom had an uncle by the name of Carter Morgan, and this guy Carter Morgan, his sister was the mother of a woman who became an actress, Anne Morgan Gilbert. If you remember the Dick Van Dyke Show, she played Millie Helper, the neighbor. And so she and my mom were cousins. Anne Morgan Gilbert, you know, went on to be in The Nanny, which I never watched, but basically she and my mom were like the same age, given a few months and apart, and you know, knew each other a little when they were growing up, and ended up corresponding a little in their later years. You know, my mom passed away a couple years ago, and the cousin a few years before that. But Anne Morgan Gilbert was amongst all the TV stuff she did, she was the character of Evelyn at Del Boca Vista, and was in the Penn episode and the Cadillac episode. So she comes in when Jerry is there, and comes in to his parents' place, and you know, it's like, so where's the pen? You know, she goes in to see the astronaut pen from Columbus. So
that's awesome.
Wow, that's
yeah.
amazing, Scott. For you to never have told me that, to tell me on this is
don't
incredible. Like, I literally got
I
goosebumps.
never did.
I'm glad you didn't, because I love hearing this, because I have goosebumps now, because that's so rad.
That's
Oh my god,
waiting for
That's
this
really cool.
moment, apparently. So yeah, fewer degrees of separation, but yeah, I always am kind of proud. So shout out to the memory of we knew her as Aunt Millie. I never met her, unfortunately, but yeah, in the family, it was always just kind of like, oh, that's pretty cool. So yeah. Anyway,
incredible. Well, thank you,
thanks
Scott.
so much.
We can't thank you enough, because this episode brought such joy to me right before we came on.
Good.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, great pool. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks. Yeah. All right. A lot of fun, guys. Thanks. Take care.
Yep.
You too. Thanks, Scott.
Thank
Yep.
you.